Hi there, and welcome back to Cookin' with Kelly. Today I have my daughter Aaliyah with me. One of the things that I'm really big on as a health coach and a fitness coach is is women and men getting their kids involved in health. And one of the ways that you should do that is by teaching them how to cook. So my daughter is 10 years old. She's going to be 11 in a few days. So happy birthday to her. But she is, at this point, she's watched me cook in the kitchen for years and years. And at this point, she can actually, for the most part, go into the kitchen and cook dinner by herself. She'll look up a recipe. She knows how to read a recipe. She knows how to do the measurements. And she's able to cook a meal from scratch all on her own. So obviously, when it comes to kids, you need to be a little bit careful, with stoves and with ovens. So I try to be there when she's got hot, things that are hot going on. But beyond that, the skill of cooking is something that you can pass along to your kids that's really going to help them once they fly the coop. And speaking of flying the coop, we did go out a little bit ago and we got our eggs. So what we're going to be doing today is we are going to be making an everything but the kitchen sink quiche. And the reason that I love doing this quiche, I typically do it towards the end of a week when I've got veggies kind of half rotting in the fridge. So I have a whole bowl of veggies here that's been in the fridge for a little while. My Brussels sprouts, they're starting to get a little bit, maybe a little slimy. So, slimy carrots. We're going to be cooking them in the quiche. So the cooking process is going to kill any bacteria, but it's a great way to use up veggies that are getting close to their use by date. It's also a great way to use meat if you have meat left over from previous meals during the week. So I love these quiches because you can kind of throw everything into them, and they're going to taste good. And eggs are a great source of cheap protein, even if you buy the pasture-raised variety, which I highly recommend. We pasture-raise our own chickens, so we've got a nice variety of our eggs right here. But first, what we're going to do is, because with our quiche, I typically like to have some type of a side dish. So my daughter Aaliyah has gotten really good. She loves sliced potatoes. So she's going to slice some potatoes nice and thin, and she's going to baste them with an olive oil and put some seasonings on them. And we're going to get those roasting in the oven first. So Aaliyah, you want to take it away here? So I'm going to stay close because we're going to be careful with the knife. Watch your fingers. Yep. Very nice. It's always a little scary watching them with the knife, but about how thin are you? I would say that she's cutting them. They don't have to be perfect, and there's probably a tool for this. Be careful. All right, so that's probably the last one you should cut. We'll take that end. She's probably doing these maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. The thinner you cut them, the faster they're going to cook for you. But this make a great side dish for your breakfast for dinner. Careful. Just for easy cleanup, you don't have to use parchment paper if you don't have it, but for easy cleanup and, busy moms with kids, anything that makes life easier when it comes to cleanup is a good thing. So we are going to line our rimmed cookie sheet with parchment paper. And what are you going to do next?
You put the potatoes on the tray.
Say again.
Put the potatoes on the tray.
Okay.
So for the sauce we're putting over the potatoes, the first thing you put into the bowl is Italian organic,
Extra virgin olive oil, right?
and
And then what?
the second thing, does not matter what order it is, I put garlic powder and Italian seasoning in. And then last, I like to put lime juice or lemon juice, doesn't matter which one. So I don't really go by measuring cups for this.
Nope. I don't measure too much either. That's the great thing about these recipes. You don't have to do a whole lot of measuring. Yeah, that's a full bottle. There we go. I also like to use a good Italian olive oil, extra virgin. It's one of the healthier oils you can use for sure. Right. All right, what goes in next?
Garlic powder I put in.
Garlic powder. And like roughly how much would you say you put in?
Maybe roughly a tablespoon.
About a tablespoon? It's a lot. This house will smell like garlic by the time we're done here. See, she's even using the cap as her measuring tool. That's perfect. Okay, what next?
Italian seasoning.
Italian seasoning. Nice job, and that looks like it's probably about a half a tablespoon. Beautiful. Now you could mince fresh garlic for this too, but you know, sometimes it's just easier to use the garlic powder. All right, and now you're probably gonna want something to mix that a little bit, and I'm gonna get you something to baste. Are you gonna get the baster?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Just mix this up. I mix this up first and then add the lime juice normally.
Okay, now add the lime.
It depends on how much lime or lemon you like in your stuff. I like stuff sour, so.
Me too.
Put a
So
lot in.
with any type of seasoning, whether it be salt or garlic powder, you know, that's why we say to taste. We make things to taste, because some people are going to like more garlic, some people are going to like more lime. All right, and now what are you doing?
I use this to put the seasoning over the potatoes.
Right. And if you would, leave me a little bit of that, okay? Oh yeah, lots of garlic on that. It's gonna smell good in here in a little bit. Whew. All right, you gonna leave me a little bit of that?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. All right, let's put this in. Okay, so we now have our potatoes ready to go. The oven was preheated to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. To be honest, you could probably do 375, you could probably do 350. And these are probably gonna take 25 to 30 minutes in the oven, depending on how much browning you want on them and how thick you've cut them. So if they're more thin than what I have here, it's gonna take less time. If you cut them more thick, it's gonna take a little bit more time. So you're gonna do it to your taste of doneness. I'm gonna put this in the oven to leave enough room for my quiche. Okay, so those are in. Now we are going to start the quiche. So I reserved, sometimes I use butter, sometimes I use a little bit of leftover bacon fat, depending on what I've got. But since I've got a little bit left of the olive oil mixture that she used, I'm actually going to use that to grease my pan. And I am going to use my cast iron here. Let's move this to the side. So let's just go ahead and dump this right in here. Okay. And I am going to use a little bit of paper towel just to kind of move it all around in there. Thank you, dear. Okay. So once again, this is a dish that is so simple to make, and it allows you the opportunity to use up stuff in your fridge. And I'm just a huge fan of breakfast for dinner because it's easy. Usually we can get by with about one pan. And as you'll see in a few minutes, we're able to modify so that we can make everyone happy. So she is not necessarily a huge fan of the greens and the veggies, but I am, and I always try to be a little bit more healthy, but we'll be able to move things almost like a pizza. We'll be able to move some things to the side so that she can have the egg and cheese part of the quiche and I can get more of the veggies in there. So we're gonna cut up a few veggies now. So as I mentioned before, great way, these quiches are a great way to use up veggies, and you can see that like my onion here has been sitting out for a little while, and I'm going to cut just the end off, but it's really, I need to use this up so that it doesn't go bad. It's the worst thing is buying these expensive healthy vegetables and having them go bad. So I'm just going to cut up a little bit of this. And you're going to end up cooking or sauteing some of your veggies first. So any veggies that are a little bit on the hard side. So that's going to be your onions, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, carrots, cauliflower, any of those things, the pepper that I've got here, you're going to want to put those in the pan and cook them for a little bit before you put your egg mixture in. Throw that in there right now. Okay. I'm gonna put that to the side. We don't need too much onion. And I like to get these pretty relatively finely diced. But I don't ever dice anything too fine, just because if somebody wants to pick things out, then they can do that. So my husband is not a huge fan of peppers. So I'm going to dice these pretty big so that he's able to pick them out if any of them happens to get into his quiche. All right, now we got some Brussels sprouts. Just do a few of these. I'm trying not to put too much in the pan because my particular cast iron pan isn't all that big, and I want to be able to fit all of the eggs in there as well. All right. And we'll just put a little bit of, let's see here, a little bit of broccoli in there, trying to use up some stuff here. So if you have a bigger pan, you could do this and you could use more egg. You'd have to use more eggs, but you could fit a lot more in. And the other great thing, gosh, I love these quiches so much. One of the other great things about these quiches is that they keep really well. So you can freeze them. You can, once they're done, you can slice them up. You can freeze them so that you can use them as breakfast throughout the week, or you can put them in the fridge. But you can also freeze them so that you have them, you know, for some time down the road. For those of you who struggle with the meal planning, this is a great option so that you have something that's readily available for you to grab and go. I will actually eat this quiche cold, and I think it's pretty good. All right. So now what we are going to do is we are going to put these on the stove, and we're going to let them saute for a few minutes. We're going to go with this one. And I'm going to let those saute on about medium heat, medium-high heat. I'm starting to smell the potatoes. All right, and Aaliyah, if you would like to start cracking eggs into the bowl. About how many eggs are we doing?
10.
About 10 for our, I believe my pan is somewhere 9 to 10 inch cast iron pan. And you don't have to use cast iron for this, but I really prefer my cast iron. It does, I still haven't gotten it to be totally nonstick, but we are getting there. And while she's cracking eggs, as I said, quiches are a great way to use up ingredients or things in your freezer or in your refrigerator or in your kitchen that are going bad. So, or getting close to their use by date. So I have a few different kinds of meat. We had just a little bit of leftover smoked pork from a meal that we had the other night. Now this is not enough for another meal for my family, but adding it into this quiche is gonna bring on a little bit of a smoke flavor. So if you have leftover taco meat, if you have leftover chicken from something from the grill, you can easily cut it up and toss it into your quiche. So every time I do quiche, it is a little different every time because I'm always adding different stuff to it. All right, so good job. Yes, you always want to wash your hands. And by the way, it's really important to note here that with this quiche, if you're adding animal protein, if you're adding meat, it should be fully pre-cooked. If it's not, you're going to need to cook it ahead of time before you throw it into the quiche. You do not want to eat undercooked meat. Thank you for stirring that. Okay, I think I've got all of this cut up well. I also add cheese, so everybody seems to like cheese. Once again, if you want to make this more healthy, you're gonna add more veggies. If you're looking for more of a maybe a not as healthy quiche, you can just add a bunch of cheese, and you could add bacon. You can add the things that you love. All right, so Aaliyah, what I'm going to have you do is, go ahead and whisk that up. Try and keep it in the bowl.
Always make sure to wash your hands after touching an egg.
That's right. I'm going to go over here and mix for a second.
Your eggs don't have to be thoroughly mixed well. You want to make sure that
Can you say that again?
You don't need to have your egg all the way mixed, but you need to make sure you have it mostly combined color.
Yeah, that's right. So mostly combine the color, but like I'm always telling her in the kitchen, you know, we try and cook things where you don't have to be perfect. That's why we don't use a lot of measuring cups. When we're baking, we do, but for the most part. All right, I'm gonna take that, and if you would kind of throw some cheese in there, and I'm gonna throw these in here, and then I'm gonna have you mix it up again. So meat is going in.
Let me throw all this.
No, not all of that. Just some. All right, that looks good. Now why don't you go ahead and whisk it up again. So if you have somebody in your family who doesn't like meats or cheeses, you don't have to add these things. This quiche is whatever you want to make it. All right, so we're working on the veggies here. We're getting there. With these veggies, I cut them pretty thick, so I'm gonna let them cook for another couple of minutes until they start to soften just a little bit. And Aaliyah is going to check the potatoes. Oh, they're looking pretty good. But usually with veggies, you saute them for anywhere from 6 to 8 minutes. Now, if you have softer veggies, or if you have greens, so I'm going to add some greens. You're going to want to add these the last minute of your saute, because otherwise they'll cook too much. So I'm going to cook these. I'm going to throw a couple of these in. I'm going to cook them for about 1 minute, just so that they wilt. And this is spinach. Thank you for helping me clean up, dear. All right, so I'm just getting these to where they're just wilted down. All right, that's about good. Hey, Aaliyah, can you move those knives, please? Okay. So you want to be very careful. Please watch out, don't touch this, okay? All right, so here's the fun part, where we're gonna dump the egg in slowly, but again, because I do have some picky eaters in my family, I'm going to move a lot of the vegetables over to one side, and I'm gonna try to keep about a quarter of it clear of those veggies so that somebody who shall maybe not be named, you, will actually eat this. So she's gonna have egg and cheese and meat in her quiche, but she's gonna have fewer of the veggies. Whatever ends up accidentally getting in there, she's gonna be able to kind of pick out.
I will definitely pick it out.
Okay. All right, so can you very slowly, don't touch the pan, very slowly pour some right there. Good. All right, now, yes. All right, go ahead and dump in the rest. Okay. Just throw that right in there. Thank you, dear. All right, so I'm just going to kind of gently make sure that the mixture is relatively even in the pan. And what we're gonna do, I'm gonna make sure she gets a little bit of meat in there. What we're gonna do now is we're gonna put this back on the stove, and I'll have to turn the stove off, but we're gonna put this back on the stove, and we're gonna let the bottom of it set for somewhere between, I don't know, 8 and 10 minutes. And I really don't have a great way to test that. I usually just throw it on a medium-high stove for 8 to 10 minutes, and then I'm gonna put it in the oven to finish cooking for about 10 to 15. So let's get this back on the stove. Okay. And you're gonna check that.
From high school sports to community events and beyond, you can find all of your favorite local shows on the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Hi, I'm Kristen Gambasini from Craft Table. You can check out my show as well as other local favorites such as Medina Minute, Cooking with Kelly, and Leisure and Literature on Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
Check us out right now on Channel 100 or search Armstrong Neighborhood Channel on YouTube for playlists and much more. Spirit, town pride, community. This is the Armstrong Neighborhood Channel.
All right, so our quiche and our potatoes are done, and to figure out whether your quiche is done, I usually just kind of grab the handle and give it a shake, and as long as it's still not liquid in the center, you pretty much know that it should be done. I also turned on the broiler a little bit for this, just because I do like it to be a little bit more browned on the top. All right, so we're gonna cover that, and don't touch that, okay? And I'm gonna get the potatoes out of the oven as well. All right, so our potatoes are also fairly nicely browned. Okay, and usually what I would do is let this cool for just a few minutes. So anything that's not cooked right in the center is probably gonna cook as it sits. So you might wanna let this sit for 5 to 10 minutes. In that time, if you like extra cheese, I usually just sprinkle a little bit of extra on the top. You could also do sliced tomatoes on the top. You want to do this for me? Okay, just don't touch the pan, okay? Very nice. And I'm going to find a spatula, and I think I saw, oh yes, perfect. You could use a knife. I'm going to use a pizza cutter for this, but I'm just going to cut just like slices here. And as it cools, it gets easier to come out of the pan. So right now this is very hot. And so we got it cut in quarters right now. And I'm going to cut a couple of smaller pieces. And my lovely assistant has peeled an orange and put some of that on our plate here. I always like to have a little bit of a fruit. Oh, and I think, oh, look at that. See, look how nicely it comes out of the pan. We're gonna put a little bit of this on here, and Aaliyah, if you would like to take the spatula and maybe dish out some potatoes. Right there, a few more, please. All right, so this is a super simple way to use up stuff that's in your leftovers in your fridge, leftover veggies. This is the everything but the kitchen sink quiche, and my daughter helped me make the sliced potatoes. So, and we just have a few oranges here. So this is a relatively healthy meal that is very quick, and it's all done in the oven. So I hope that you found this useful. If you have questions for me, you can contact me, Kelly Bailey, on my website, www.kellybailey.fit, or you can email me at kellybailey1980@gmail.com. So come on over here. Thank you so much, my little helper. Make sure that you are getting your kids in the kitchen. It's one of the best skills that you can give them. Later on, they're gonna need to know how to cook when they fly the coop. Bye, say bye.